Good morning, everybody. It's good Sunday morning. This is a special edition of Roll Call, which we generally don't have, but Lauren Conlin is here from Pop Crime TV, who was nice enough to give us 30 minutes of her time this morning because everybody's running around this morning and doing things. But Lauren has been live every day from the Diddy trial, inside the courtroom, on breaks, in the pouring rain with umbrellas, making all kinds of stuff. But before we get into this whole thing about what actually transpired this week, Lauren, all the trauma and all the stuff that you had to hear and listen to, how are you dealing with it personally? I mean, you've been getting up at what 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning probably and trying to get there online, and how are you dealing with your own issues there?
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, I will say this, Joe. I don't want to say I gave up being trying to get in the direct courtroom towards the end of the week. I was like, you know what, the overflow room is fine. You get a little more flexibility in there where you can kind of leave very easily and come back in. Um, but it's dark. I mean, I was under the just like the impression that it wouldn't affect me because you're listening to people like Cassie testify and it happened to them. It didn't happen to me. So I'm like, why would this affect me? Why would it bother me? And I was kind of telling you before we jumped on, like last night, I woke up a lot at night and I was thinking
Yeah.
about some of this testimony and how dark it was and how dark it was for her. And also, this, there's a big difference between what happened to someone as a human being and what you can prove in court. So, as I'm reporting this and as I'm watching this, I'm detailing about the holes that the defense is poking in Cassie's statement. And when I say holes, I just mean the text messages and the emails we saw where she said, I never want the freak offs to end. I always want one, and this and that.
Yeah.
And deep down as a woman, I know what she's doing. She's in this relationship. She's been groomed. I mean, this is my opinion from what I heard since 21, 22 years old. It's tough to get out of a situation like that, and we say things we don't mean. And so I really, I feel for her because it's not that easy. The why didn't you leave? Why didn't you? It's not like that. However, just putting my other hat on, I guess, as a reporter and as just someone that observes a lot of trials, I acknowledge the fact that it might be hard to get a sex trafficking conviction on Cassie's testimony alone. Obviously, that's not the only thing we're going to hear. That's just my opinion. If that all makes sense, I've got to like separate everything
Yeah,
here.
I think they're building
So,
up to that, right? So I think they're using Cassie's testimony about the essay and about all the allegations that were made, and they're slowly building their case up. The prosecution. I think we saw this with Bill Cosby. Where you get the individuals up there, and each witness starts building on it. I did post right now the National Essay Hotline for anybody who has been a victim, know a family member's a victim, or knows somebody that needs help. That's the National Hotline toll-free number. Just write it down and get the help that you need. Yeah, because it's all about trauma, fear, and the psychological dependency that people feel, and they just don't. A lot of people don't understand that. Like I watched the conversations online. Like, why didn't she just leave? And oh, but it's something that really stood out to me, Lauren, when the defense put out, because I only saw it afterwards, but I don't know if you were in the room when this happened. But when the
mhm.
defense put out text messages from 2012, I mean, who saves text messages from 11 years ago unless you thought you were going to be able to need it down the road?
Okay, so that's interesting, and they brought that up because they kept saying, and I still didn't understand the significance of this maybe until the last day of Cassie's testimony. And keep in mind, she was on the stand for 4 days, Tuesday through Friday. They kept saying, we got this information or these texts, these emails, whatever, from Ms. Ventura's broken devices. And so, you're kind of thinking, like, what is this? They keep saying broken devices. I believe it was maybe the last day, and it was on like after Cassie's redirect, after they were finished cross-examining her, after the redirect, they said something like, why did you have these broken devices? And she said she didn't want to take them to the Apple store or to any of these stores to get fixed because she didn't know what was on them, but she still kept them just in case. So
Gotcha.
I didn't quite, I still am kind of like, I don't I don't know what that means exactly,
But
but
that makes sense though, having old text messages then. So that kind of answers out
oh,
that question. Yeah.
yeah, and the recording that she had on her phone where she is really acting like, and again, these are my words, she's acting like a mob boss, telling this guy, I will kill you, I will put you under the
Yeah.
dirt. I think all of us were like, what? And again, that doesn't mean that none of this stuff happened to her. In my opinion, that just meant that she was under the watch and under the guidance of Sean Combs. And it's kind of like what your mom tells you in high school. If you hang out with this group of people, you're gonna go down this road. If you hang out with these people, you may not. Well, you can't help it. She's spending all this time with him. She's scared of him half the time. So she needed to get this alleged video that was on this guy Sujit's phone, and that's what I'm talking about with this recording. And I haven't had a chance, but they keep talking about this guy Sujit, and I'm like, I need to figure out who he is. I have not gone down that rabbit hole, but this
Hmm.
is where the recording came from, where she said that she was in Atlantic City, and this guy said he had a video of her on his phone, and she tells Diddy, and he is like, don't let him out of your sight. And we heard this days ago, and I didn't really think much of it because we didn't hear the recording. We didn't know the magnitude of it. She kind of described Diddy having a meeting with Sujit after he got back into town. And she made it seem like it was this dinner with bodyguards around and everybody like a mafia dinner, like where he should be scared. And I was like, okay, that's just another thing adding to his alleged criminal enterprise. And then we heard the recording from the defense, and it was, their way of saying, well, Sean Combs wasn't in town, Miss Ventura. This is all you, blah, blah, blah. So there was a lot of that. And again, this is not me saying that because I think Cassie was wrong or whatever. I'm just saying that's what the defense was pulling out of their magic hat.
Right. Yeah. Or other locations. The defense, has to try to do this. I mean, we know how this works, right? So if they can, discredit her in any way, because I believe they think that this is going to be building up to that too, because there's a couple other people that are on deck. Who
Yeah.
Aubrey O'Day, right? I saw that she said she wasn't going to testify, but kind of.
So she's not
Yeah.
going to testify. She wasn't subpoenaed. I, I think about this. So just her bandmate, Dawn Richard, started to testify on Friday, and they
Right.
had a sidebar, and they're still going to be discussing this, whether her testimony should be admissible, because she testified that she saw Diddy. They were recording something. Danny Kane was recording something at his LA house, and Cassie was there making him eggs on a skillet. She was there with Kalena Harper, a bandmate. She saw Diddy come downstairs and like beat Cassie. Um, because she didn't make eggs fast enough. Like she was on the ground, he kicked her, he almost hit her in the head with the skillet. And then the next day, he just told them, you just witnessed a lot of passion. That's all it was. We don't need to talk about this. And so the defense is like, well, what charges is this testimony adding to? What is this pertaining to? So, and I think that's the issue. It's kind of like the Harvey Weinstein trial, and his conviction got overturned, the 2020 conviction, because they had all these witnesses on the stand that really didn't, there was, you know what I'm saying, right? Like this was never documented at the time. This was never a thing at the time. This was just people piling on per se. And this was like, with Harvey, oh, Harvey touched me at this party. Harvey did this, Harvey did that. I mean, he probably did, but again, we're talking about a federal trial in the case of Diddy. So I don't know, but I just don't think Aubrey had the knowledge of any of the illegal activity, because again, let's just remind ourselves, he's not on trial for rape. He's not on trial for domestic violence, which, but Cassie has the knowledge of some of the illegal stuff he did with sex workers and whatever. And again, maybe Aubrey does. I'm just thinking that she doesn't, but she has her own experiences.
Well, like for the time that you were in the courtroom and you got a
Mhm.
chance to see the jury, what was some of their reactions? Did you catch anything? Were you watching that, or were you able to see that from where you were
It's
sitting?
No, it's hard, and I think the overall consensus has been that the jury has been pretty stoic, as Diddy has been as well, except for I think on Friday a little bit. And in the overflow room, if you sit close enough to the monitors, you can see Diddy and the lawyers pretty clearly, and you can see the jury when they walk in. But there was a time when I don't remember what day it was, but they showed images, still images, and these were sealed to the press and the public. And they were images of Cassie, Diddy, and an escort, still images from a video of a freak off. And the jury was looking at them, and one woman kind of reacted like, like that. But I mean, I feel like it's rowdier in the overflow room because you've got a mix of press and public, and you can't be loud, but the reactions are just like, whoa, whoa. And it's almost like you're able to get these reactions because it's not the actual courtroom, and it's a little more acceptable to do that. But on Friday, Diddy was kind of sitting back, and he was looking through transcripts when Cassie was testifying, and he was passing his attorney notes very frequently. And there were some hot mic moments too that I couldn't make out, and I was so mad. And I think at the end of the day, I really should go over some other outlets, like news outlets, their reports, so I can figure this out. But I'm a little burnt out at the end of the day, and my kids are needing stuff from me. But I got to figure out, because you could hear a lot of whispers, and sometimes it was just hard to make out. But I'm like, what is going on? And it was from the lawyers mainly. But I also want to say the judge in this, he is like no nonsense. He's kind of funny too. He's kind of like, he just, I can't, it's hard to explain. He just does not tolerate them trying to, like, basically Robert Alessi in his courtroom would have a really hard time because he's very verbal. He talks a lot, and Subramanian is like, no, we're done here. We're done. Move on.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean, you need somebody. I mean, this thing could get right out of control just because of who's involved and all this stuff. But yeah, one of the things that I heard from your reporting, because I said we've seen you on NBC, we've seen you on Nancy Grace. Any of them I missed so far? Any
Oh,
other
God,
shows?
no, I mean, I don't even know. I'm trying to. I'll be on Newsmax later, but I'm trying to
Okay.
take time and
No,
yeah.
yeah, you have to take time for your own self too. But you
Mhm.
know, we've seen your reporting and stuff like that, and especially in between the lunch breaks and stuff, which has been great. I've been catching those videos, and you know, one of the things that I worry about in this case too, and not really worry about it, but one of the things that I'm kind of looking at is that we're hearing that Diddy is constantly telling his lawyers basically what to do. And in the long run, that might not be a good thing, because if they're trying to prove that this is all about domination, control, and manipulation, I mean, he's doing it with his own lawyers. And I've heard this reported not only from yourself, but from others too there. So everybody's catching on to that.
Well, you know what's weird, Joe, is okay, when and I'll tie this together, but when the Homeland Security agent Yassine Binda testified on Friday, and she was the photographer. She was the photographer at the Park Hyatt Hotel where they arrested Diddy in New York City in September of 2024. Sorry, I have to remember to add context into what I'm freaking saying because it's all running
That's okay.
together. You guys all know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, so she was a photographer at the Park Hyatt, and she showed us and told us what she collected from the hotel room upon his arrest, which included multiple bottles of baby oil, Astroglide, like $9,000 cash, drugs that included MDMA and ketamine, all found in this med bag, this Louis Vuitton med bag that Cassie described. And the first thing I thought of, Joe, was when the defense was trying to get Diddy out on bail. And they're like, Your Honor, he came to New York expecting to be arrested. He's here because he knew he was going to be arrested. Like, he's cooperating. And I'm like, what? Are you sure about that, guys? Because if he knew he was going to be arrested, why would he have ketamine? Why would he have the drugs? Why would he have the one last FO? I'm just like, what? And I think that's when I started to put together, and this might sound insane, the baby oil, because if you guys saw my videos, I stepped
Yeah.
out one day. My mind was blown with the baby oil talk, and I was like, this is like, I get the foundational stuff, but this is out of control. Are they trying to make baby oil like the center of the crimes? Like that is the one main thing, and this baby oil just signifies that he's about to commit these awful sex crimes. I started to sort of think about that because it's the one constant that we're seeing when these alleged crimes are about to be committed. Baby oil is always involved somehow. I mean, besides
Right.
RICO, I guess, but yeah.
And also probably would have defeated the defense's motion to try to get him out on bail too, is that when they doing the search warrants, he was disappearing. They thought he was in his plane, in his private jet. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we might have, talked offline about that. I'm like, he isn't going, by
Right.
himself. Yeah,
Mhm.
he's
Yeah, totally. But that just to me, I'm kind of like, so did his attorneys like did they discuss this? Like, did he just tell his attorneys that and they didn't really check on him or like, and that's what I'm saying. Like it because they definitely said that. Like they definitely said that at a pretrial hearing that he flew to New York to expecting to be arrested. So in my mind, as she's about to testify, I'm like, they found nothing in that hotel room. I'm thinking that to myself. There's no way they found anything because he wouldn't be that stupid if what they said is true. He came to New York to be arrested. Well, I mean, the ketamine isn't legal if you get it like that, and the MDMA isn't legal. And why do I mean, yeah, but baby oil isn't a crime, right? It's only a
right.
crime if it's tied to crimes.
Well, like I said, once the feds are involved, which kind of is there any discussion about why Homeland Security was doing this and not any other agencies? Did they?
That's a good question. No, I really have no idea. And Yasin Binda even she discussed, subpoenaing others in this case as well. So that is confusing. I didn't actually think of that. That's a really good question.
Well, if you get a chance, then I mean, I would ask that in that respect too, because you figured with
Yeah,
trafficking and people coming from different states, different thing, that the FBI would be stepping in on something like that too. So, I mean, it just to me, just from the law enforcement perspective, I just found
yeah,
that interesting. So, trafficking says falls under Homeland Security. It might, but it also the Hobbs Act also falls within the FBI about transporting people across state lines to commit crimes. So. It could,
yeah,
as long as one of the federal agencies are in it, that's why we have the federal nexus.
yeah.
Just a tidbit from what I was just. That's how my brain operates. It's like
That's
why
a
didn't they do
really
that?
that's a really good point and a really good question. And I should raise that at some point.
Well, yeah, if you get a chance to ask, I mean, there's probably a legitimate reason other than like I said, if human trafficking falls under Homeland Security, then that's fine. But then there's also falls under a lot of other agencies too in regards to that.
Yeah, and I probably could ask one of the lawyers too, because I feel like I've been on the elevators with them in the courthouse a bunch of times. And just like a side note, they Mark Agnifilo and Tenny, they're so nice. Like Mark Agnifilo is like the dad next door that you want to barbecue with or something. He's just like he holds the door for everybody. He's just such a or he's I mean, I don't know him, but he seems like such a regular,
Yeah, well,
nice guy. Same with Brian
defense
Steele.
attorneys yeah,
Yeah,
defense attorneys sometimes get a bad rep, so it's just because of who they have to, defend. I mean, but it's a necessary thing that you have in society, and we need to have them. So, yeah, I
yeah,
think. Well, listen, there really have been very few lawyers that I ever dealt with that I didn't like, and I
right.
didn't like them just for personality reasons, not because you're going up against them. It's just it is.
Yeah,
'Cause I always tell people if you really want to know about like how that kind of situation goes. It's like you remember the coyote and the sheepdog from the Bugs Bunny cartoons where they're trying to kill each other all day and then they check out at the end of the day. I see him on Bob. Okay, so that's basically what it is.
so true.
That's
I feel like
basically what that's
that's
basically what it is.
and they are when they're having these evidentiary issues and all these issues they're raising before the jury comes in. I mean, I'll say they're very cordial to each other, the government and Diddy's team, very cordial. But Maureen Comey, she is no nonsense. Like she is hardcore. I mean, you can tell why she is so good at her job. At one point, she had said something about she wanted evidence to be turned over in the morning instead of the afternoon in regards to Cassie Ventura. And the defense, there was this whole thing where they were like, no, we're not going to give it to you because you're going to go over it with her before lunch. And they also didn't want her, or during lunch, they didn't want her conferring with the government or her attorneys during any type of breaks. That was the whole thing too. I don't think that flew. But at one point, Comey says, we need the evidence now. And everybody was like, whoa, it was great. I was like, this is good. She's good.
Just wanted to take a quick shout out to Sinead. Thank you very much for that super sticker, Sinead. I really appreciate that.
Love
Thank you.
Sinead.
So we have about 10 minutes left. I just want, was there anything that you thought that was almost like a potential bombshell, or anything that you heard that you kind of like the red flag kind of went up?
Yeah, I mean, there oh god, Joe, there's a lot. And I think that some of the stuff that I detail in my reports, they're bombshells in general, but I don't know if people would consider them bombshells to the case, right? I think a bombshell to the case is what the HSI agent found. Like that is, I thought, was a big deal. But in terms of like everything we heard from Cassie and the escort, I mean, I wish I could unhear some of that, Joe. I wish I didn't know certain things that Diddy liked to do,
Yeah.
and I wish I
Yeah.
didn't. Sorry. I really, like really and truly, I sat there and I was like, what happened to this guy when he was a kid that this is what he wants to do during sex? I'm sorry. Like what? And I'm not, and how do you beat women like that? How do you beat this? Like, she's so small. And it's like, we heard all of these, when she told us this one instance where he beat her so bad, she was hiding under a toilet. And she said that James Cruz walked in from Bad Boy Records, and D-Rock, Diddy's security guard that she was very close with, she said that they both cried. And you're like, that's awful. And again, I know it's not that easy to just report Diddy or go to the police. So I get everybody has their reasons, but you've got two grown men crying, seeing this little girl on the ground getting the crap kicked out of her, and I guess it's great you have feelings, but it stopped there. And then after that, we saw corroboration with text messages with D-Rock texting Cassie, it's time to ice your face. Because essentially what I gathered from her testimony was, after at least two of these beatings, he would almost kidnap her and not let her leave either his home or a hotel. One in particular, this one instance where he wouldn't let her leave the London hotel, I felt horrible. She was there for 7 to 10 days, begged to leave to go see her mom. No, no. And I think that
Yeah.
when they would tell us about these instances, and then we would see photos of them on the red carpet the very same night, you just feel as a human being, you're like, man, like, we don't know anything. We just don't know anything. Hours before, he was dragging her up somewhere by the hair, kicking her in the stomach, and now they're like on a red carpet, and she's showing us where all the bruises are. And it's just, that was text messages. I mean, there was one text message where, she said, it was so sad. She just said, I'm someone's child. I'm not a rag doll. It was also shocking, Joe, when, she said she didn't hate him. And she said that they said, well, do you love him? Do you still love him? And she said, I have love for the past, for what it was. And I was like, oh, that was shocking too. I don't fault her. I don't judge her, but I was shocked. And then the $10 million settlement with the Intercontinental that the defense was able to elicit from her, that was like, whoa, nobody knew that. And then, in terms of Diddy, I feel like what the defense did, and this is, I'll say it from my perspective, but we saw a lot of like the whole abuser I'm sorry's. But the most important I'm sorry, I felt like, came in 2020, a text exchange that they showed us between Diddy and Cassie. This was the only time that I kind of believed him, because clearly he was, I mean, in my opinion, I didn't think he was ever really sorry, because he kept doing it over and over again. But in 2020, I felt like this was a little bit more genuine. He sent her a text congratulating her on her child, Frankie, and said, I send this, like, with all due respect for your husband. I'm so sorry forever. Like, just like I hope you'll forgive me. I will love you forever. Say hi to your mom and dad. It was very heartfelt, and she seemed to appreciate it and reciprocate. But yeah, and then there was almost like the sensational stuff, right? The baby oil, how she had to jump in a pool of baby oil with all her clothes. And then when we heard that freak offs lasted between 1 and 4 days, I mean, I was just like, what? But then like the defense would clarify and add context. Well, 1 to 4 days, but you wouldn't be in the act the entire 4 days. You'd be chilling.
Good.
Yeah, I
Good.
know, right? Because I was like, oh, that hurts. I was like, no, I was thinking like, what could you possibly do? But it was sort of like a drug binge where they would do drugs and listen to music and whatever. Not that that's, whatever, but, or so much better, but it was, yeah, that was hard to hear. God, I mean, there's just so much. There's so
Well,
much. It's
that
like, yeah,
Intercontinental video, right? The video for the Intercontinental, the hotel there.
yeah,
Um, yeah, if anybody doubted that the stories that Cassie told about being beaten and everything, I mean, just if you watch that video, there's just, I mean, that was another brutal attack that got caught on video. Do we know how that actually uh was secured? Was that something? Have they talked about that? How they actually even got that video?
yeah. Well, I don't know exactly how CNN got it, but what happened? And look, we've had to watch that like 6 times and maybe more, frame by frame. It's so difficult, never gets easier. But what happened was the security guard, he was the first witness, Israel Flores, to testify from Securitas. He gets, the call or the alert from somebody in security because Cassie picked up the phone to call the emergency line or whatever. And he had not seen, he said, he testified, he didn't know what was going on. He hadn't seen what happened in the hallway yet. But he goes up there, he separates them. Cassie basically gets her stuff and like runs. Diddy is left in the room with like another escort. And Israel Flores, I'm skipping through a lot, but long story short, he has to write up an incident report and he submits it. And then his supervisor is like, wait, you didn't watch the tape. You need to go back and watch the tape before you submit this. So then he goes back to watch the tape, but he tells us you need a password and something else to download the tape and like attach it to your report or to an email. And he couldn't do that. So he just, he watched it, he submitted it. But then he said he wanted to tell like his fellow security guards, and then he wanted to show his wife because she like wouldn't believe him. So he did take a video with his phone of
Gotcha.
yeah, but there's like 2 separate videos. But then he said when he went back to show them like the next day, it was gone. So I feel like this could be part of Cassie's settlement. Like they either hid it for a certain period of time or I don't know. Or yeah, it's weird, but isn't it crazy? He's been sitting on this footage for a decade and it never got out. It's kind of
Yeah.
crazy to me. Like I was like, whoa, yeah.
So you're planning on being there again this week for week 2?
Yeah, I mean, I plan on being there throughout the course of the trial. I know already, like I have to take a kid to a doctor's appointment one morning as a performance at school. At the end of the school year, I don't know for the parents, it's like, hey, here's like 27 things in the middle of the day. In
Lunch
the last
lady.
school. Yeah, I'm just like, really? There's like 2 weeks of school left. Can you give us a effing break? It's like, yeah. No, I know the parents in the chat will be like, yep, every day there's something else. So I'll have to just announce, like, I won't have a morning recap. I'll probably just have an afternoon recap. But like,
Okay.
I feel like I gotta see this through at this point. It's kind of just
Yes.
like I'm laser focused. I want to see, I want to see justice for these women and these men, but also just I know it's early, but I had this conversation with my husband last night, Joe. I don't think at this point, from what I've seen, I don't think he would get convicted on all 5 charges.
Interesting.
I kind of made a bet with my husband. I said he's going to get convicted on 2, maybe 2 of them. And my husband thinks like 1. He thinks not. And I'm just like, or I said 2 to 3. I said 2 to 3. But again, it's so early. I hate to even
Yeah,
say
it's
that.
so early, but still, no. I mean, it's good first impressions. So if you're not following Lauren, it's in the chat. Pop Crime TV on YouTube. Conlin _ Lauren on Twitter. That's also in there. It's also in the show notes. Catch up on her lives that she does right from her lunch breaks with her coffee in hand, and hopefully you don't need an umbrella. But
Oh my
again,
gosh. I was squeezing it between. It's so not glamorous, not cute at all. I'm like, ugh, and the phone is like this close to my face. I just am like, yeah, but everybody is very nice about it. So,
well, thank you for this opportunity on Sunday to catch exactly what transpired from the trenches at the Diddy
yeah,
trial.
let's do it again soon. You make it so easy. I feel like I'm in therapy talking about it. It's so nice.
Great, great. No, listen, if we have some groundbreaking stuff, you're always welcome. And everybody, thanks for showing up this Sunday morning. Lauren, you have a great rest of your weekend. and we'll be talking soon, everybody. Hang on, Lauren. Everybody, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.